have you joining us. I was looking at the date and realizing it's a very good friend of mine's birthday, but how this year we have the extra day in our year, the 29th. And I can look at it in the positive aspect that it gives us an extra day to work closer to getting to our goals. We don't always have them. So it's one of those fun things to think about. So yes, as Allison mentioned, this is the second in a three-part series, really addressing the way in which we look at, primarily we're looking at developing our careers, and we don't develop our careers independent of developing ourselves as humans. So how do we figure out a way to integrate all of that? How do we figure out a way to identify what matters to us, and where we want to go? And then how do we make the plan to get us there? Just like anything else, I teach strategy to business students, and our lives are strategies. They're plans about getting us to outcomes where we want to go. So I'm sharing some of this knowledge, and it's an interactive webinar. So I will be asking you to participate in some polls and things to get you thinking about your goals and your ambitions and how you can align them. So thank you. All right, we can move to the welcome, which I sort of started already, but we're going to talk about what it means to set and achieve ambitious goals, right? So our ambition is a part of all of us, different levels, and it is heavily influenced by psychology, right? It is a mixture of where we want to go and where we've been, so to speak. And so this hour, we're going to talk about goals that push us beyond our limits, really leveraging that ambition to get us somewhere, but also understanding why it's important that they remain achievable to keep us motivated, and then some strategies to overcome the challenges that often occur when we're trying to pursue our goals. Okay, next slide, please. So again, at the end of the webinar, you'll have a clear understanding of what ambition means, to both generally how it's defined and what it means to you. Know how to set goals that are both ambitious and smart. Some of you may be aware of SMART goals. If you're not, if you are, great. If not, we're going to learn about them, and ensuring that your goals are established to help you move forward. Strategies and how to stay motivated, overcome stress, obstacles, and ultimately tracking progress. And then give you some tools to dream and not just dream, but dream big. Okay, next slide, please. So there is a poll that's going to pop up, and what I'd like you to do is participate with us. And on a scale from 1 to 5, how would you rate your current level of ambition in pursuing personal and professional goals? And I realize you may have multiple goals and they may have different levels, but pick one right now. Pick a goal that you've been thinking about, ruminating over, and think to yourself, what is your current level of ambition? And 1 would be, I'm kind of just getting started, I'm just thinking about it. And 5 would be, I am fully committed and actively working towards achieving that goal. And then of course, 2, 3, 4 in between. Please feel free in the chat to share what, sort of your position and what you're thinking, and what you hope to achieve in that journey. I'm going to give a couple of minutes for you to figure this out. And then again, don't be shy. Sometimes putting our goals, we'll talk a little bit about the value of sharing our goals versus the value of keeping our goals quiet. But to some extent, sometimes it's helpful to just put them out there. So please don't be shy. Amazing, Jessica. That's fantastic. Starting your own business. I'm right there with you. I'd love to start my own business. I'm thinking the same thing myself. Anyone else? I mean, a goal could be taking a month to tour Europe. That's something that feeds your soul. A goal could be to getting your dog trained, to potty trained. I mean, there's all kinds of options. Can we kick that back up again? Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So here's the results. Um, Obviously, I think if you're here, you're probably beyond just getting started. So it seems to make sense that most of you or many of you would come in kind of right in the middle, like I'm moving, but I'm still unsure and I'd like some support. So for those of you who are really actively working, seriously, your contribution to this webinar will be really valuable for your fellow participants as well. So please feel free to share. And of course, at any level, feel free to share. But that just gives you an idea, right? You just sort of take that step that you can take. And I can share an example personally for myself. I had a horrible, horrible habit when I was younger, when I smoked cigarettes. And I knew I had to quit. And I remember walking into the store and I would walk by the um, like the patch and things like that. And I'd sort of look at them for a little while and I'd keep walking. And then the next time I'd walk through the store and I'd put one in my cart and I'd walk around a little bit. And I thought, okay, a little bit further, right? So every little one of those achievable steps eventually got me to bringing it home, putting it on and quitting smoking. But if I had sort of gone in and said, let's do this, chances of me actually succeeding would probably have been less likely. And that's we're going to talk about those ambitious goals and those steps and tracking your progress. So this is great. Okay. Um, Self-branding, life coaching, and legal services. Excellent. Good stuff. Okay, can we move on to the next slide, please? All right. So number one, we want to talk about understanding what ambition is. And I found these little cartoons I thought were cute. Ambition is defined often as a strong desire to do or achieve something. Um, Obviously, we've all heard the expression, nothing, easy is really, good things are not easy, right? They take work. So typically that ambition tends to require determination and hard work, but it is way more nuanced than that, right? A desire or a wish or something, um, it's very, and I'll read that, but it's a little bit different because ambition combines that desire with action, right? We all have desires and wishes. We all have. But what ambition does is it combines those wishes, desires with actual actions. Why there's different levels of ambition, right? But when you take any action towards something, you are showing some level of ambition. Again, being here. And I saw this little cartoon, which I thought was cute because it's like we can all think about when we were kids and what our big dreams and wishes were, right? And this little girl, when I grow up, I want to be a princess who performs open heart surgery on kittens in space or president of everyone, right? We all have these big dreams. Then as she gets a little older, like her life changes and there are personal experiences and things. She says, well, I haven't decided necessarily what I want, but I'll probably, says change the world or save the world, like as a doctor or a scientist or a marine biologist or something else that's awesome. Okay. And then at 22, again, out of college, maybe you learned or just at a different stage in life. Remember this day world when I'm CEO of mega important company, my biographer will call this day the day a mogul was born, right? So I think we can all sort of imagine ourselves at those ages and the kinds of individual perspectives that were motivating them. So what you're seeing, of course, is that the desire to do those things is often passive, right? Really making these great statements, but what are you doing to do it? You have to set those goals. You have to make those plans and you have to put the effort in to achieve them, right? So thinking of ambition is that thing that pushes us, right? Ambitious is what changes a goal, a wish, or a hope into something actionable. And the drivers, psychologically, they're driven by many things: personal motivation, self-confidence, and the desire for achievement, right? These are psychological factors. And anyone who studied psychology probably has a little understanding of these, but psychology plays a significant role in pretty much everything we do. Um, Influenced by upbringing, societal norms, and personal experiences. And again, my example here of this little girl changing from age 5 to when she's up to age 22, and how that vision of what she wanted to be was changing, and it was being informed by her experiences. What's really important is that ambitious people, again, not people who just wish and dream, but ambitious people, people who have the commitment to actually put the action behind it, are often people who have something called a growth mindset. Okay. And this is a belief that they have the ability to learn and grow through hard work and resilience, right? There's something called a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is people who, and you may not say to yourself, nope, I've learned everything I can learn, but a fixed mindset tends to think about, well, you can't teach a dog new tricks, an old dog new tricks, which is a lie. Teach a dog tricks any age. You can't a leopard can't change their spots. Any of those types of things that you hear people tend to say when usually something is challenging them, or they're seeing a challenge as something that's going to push them beyond their comfort level, right? And that just means that they have more of a fixed mindset, right? So the growth mindset is something that says, well, I don't know how to do that, but I mean, I don't see any reason why I couldn't learn or I couldn't figure it out. So let's move to the next. Okay. And of course, this all has an impact on your behavior and decision making. And I'm showing this because it's just the nature of human beings. We get disillusioned sometimes when our experiences changes, particularly when we start going out and trying to become the princess that does open heart surgery on kittens, or the CEO mogul. And we do some of the work. And guess what? It doesn't quite work out, or maybe we fail at something, or something doesn't go the way we want, or maybe we get a bad grade in something, right? It affects us. It can affect us. Again, those with a fixed mindset are going to go, see, I told you. Those with I told you I couldn't do it. Those with a growth mindset might say, okay, I failed it. I didn't do that great, but what did I learn, right? But here's the example of that same young girl at age 27. Now her ambition has changed slightly, only because this is a temporary moment in time, but because the challenges, her personal experiences, her environment around her have created a different perspective. So now and of course, it all depends. At 27, maybe she wants a nice new car, and she's working in a wonderful job that is meeting all of her needs, but it's not paying her that great. She's getting kind of frustrated, right? And she just says, I don't know. I just want to make the most amount of money for the least amount of work. Isn't that cool? And I need a nap. I mean, I think we've all been there, right? Where we say, and there is lots of studies out there that will say, believe it or not, that money is not a significant motivating factor in ambition and the ability to want to do well. But when we've been kicked around and we want things and we still have to work for them, it's a natural thing, and we all just get tired. So being that way can also affect decision making, right? So the thing that you're seeing too when we have these challenges is that there's this desire to look for a short-term outcome, right? And ambition is more something that we develop over time. Professionally, we grow, right? As I've been saying, we grow as we age, we grow as we have new experiences. There's no set time by which we know something to be fundamentally, without any change, true. That's part of life's journey of learning. So ambition can give you that staying power in your decision making. It can say, I got to do what matters long term. Maybe I could make the most amount of money for the least amount of work. That's great at 27, but when I'm 55 and close to retirement, how's that going to work out? right? I want to live a good life post-retirement. I don't want to keep working until I'm 90. So again, thinking about ambition is something that can distinguish between long-term and immediate gratification, right? Which tends to shape our daily choices. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So number one thing in the world, and going back to what we said about how our motivation can change based upon often societal expectations. Thank you very much. We need to let ourselves define what we want and not letting others define what we should want, right? And if you're not fully committed to what you want, your ambition to pursue it is going to be a lot harder, if at all existent. So what I'd like you to do is in the chat, share your personal definition of ambition. I've heard what I've said about where it comes from and what it's often developed in the different experiences of that young 5-year-old. What is ambition? What does it mean to you? And how does it show up in your life? So again, don't be shy. Everyone's being shy. Self-awareness and self-drive to want to do more better for yourself. Yeah. Hustle and grind. I love it. I love it. Ambition is a directive action plan to execute dreams. Love it. Right? What else? Lifelong process. We should always be setting and working towards new goals. Excellent. Professional goals with a real intention on getting there, planning and working towards it. Okay. Anyone else want to share before we get moving? Ambition, again, is the stick with it, right? Ambition tends to, whoops, my personal experience. Ambition says a lot about, I think, without going too deep into psychology, but what we want for ourselves and what we think we deserve, and our ability to work for it. Let me say, okay, you know what? I love this. This is great. I always thought I wasn't ambitious, but I think it was because I only thought of my professional life. In fact, I'm pretty ambitious in other areas, or not just focused on money and position. Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. You define that to you, money isn't necessarily the end all be all, right? And you could maybe find yourself, happily doing what job that you're doing, but you may climb mountains in the weekends, right? That's ambition, and that feeds you. So there's nothing wrong with that. Let's see what else. Oops. My ambition is to find a good employment position. Makes sense to me, right? Right? And your ambition isn't just to find a job. It's to find something that's good for you, right? And it's really easy to get caught into that trick of just finding a job, right? And sometimes you have to, but your ambition is to really put your energy behind finding the right position, okay? Accomplishing my purpose for living and impacting lives positively with ardent pursuits. Love it, right? Love it. So what we see in all of this is a sense of who we are, right? What's important to us. And I think any one of us will look at someone else and go, yeah, I associate with that. And that's fine. But the point of the activity was kind of like, what is that initial reaction, right? Because it's important to know what, again, motivation, what drives you. And there's no right or wrong answer. And those answers will shift over time, right? As we shift and grow up. But it's good to know that. It's good to know what really matters when you're thinking about what ambition is and what it means to you. Because if it is that process of executing on those dreams and goals and hopes, it's going to require work. And you often hear things like these people have no ambition. Well, because they haven't quite figured out yet. Or again, it depends. That's the other thing too, is I think you said that, which is I may not be the person, I may not be very ambitious in work, but I have lots of ambition in other areas. That's back to that idea of defining yourself, because just because other people may think that the purpose in professionally is to grow and make lots of money and may define you as having no ambition there, that's their vision. That's their definition of it. Your definition is very unique to you. So it's important for us to know this as we move on. Okay, please, next slide, please. Now we talk about setting ambitious goals. All right, setting goals and ambitious goals. So in the last webinar, we talked a bit about SMART goals, and we're going to touch upon them and then move to stretch goals. So is my goal SMART? Has anyone heard? Some may have heard of SMART goals, this cool little acronym that stands for goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Okay. Think about how you position your goals. Okay. And ask yourself, and again, we have many, many goals. For this one, I'm asking you to choose one, right? But one specific goal. Okay. And what do we mean by specific? Well, my entire life has been a goal is to lose weight. Okay. That is the least specific goal, right? That means nothing. Okay. What is a goal that makes sense? Lose 5 pounds by the end of the month. Okay. Is that achievable? Is that measurable? Yeah, I've lost 5 pounds, right? What is weight? I don't know. What does weight mean? I've lost weight by 5 pounds by the end of the month. Is it attainable? Well, not this month, because it would not be attainable to lose it by tomorrow, but say by the end of March. Is it relevant? Well, you don't need to hear my stories for why it's relevant, but yes, it's relevant. I will assure you it's relevant. And is it time-based? I've given myself a month. So when you think about the goals that you set, the more ambiguous a goal is, the harder it is to achieve. Because again, ambition is pursuing actions, specific actions, driving you to specific actions that enable you to take that wish or that desire or that goal to the next level. If you don't have that specific action laid out, all you have is a fantasy and a dream. Okay. And so you really want to think about that. And if any of you want, please write this. It's a super easy acronym, as I said, but think about specifically some of the goals that you shared. What specifically you want, right? You want a job. Well, do you have a specific kind of job you're looking for, or in a specific industry, or in a specific role, or something to that extent? Okay. And how will you measure your activities? I'm picking on you, but you gave me a great example, and I think it's wonderful. How will you measure the activities that you will use to ultimately attain that job, right? What are they, and how can you measure them? Go on, I'm doing this, apply for 5 jobs a week, follow up on 2. Try to go for 2 interviews by the end of the month. Now, granted, some of those things we don't have control over, but that doesn't mean you can't establish some boundaries around that, because it is only when you can kind of check off those things that you can measure that progress to getting to, and that's what fires the ambition to keep moving. All right. Attainable, right? Again, if you just graduated from theater school, an attainable goal may not be to win an Academy Award by next March, right? That's insanely not achievable goal. It's unrealistic, and I guarantee that it will only turn you off. So what you want to do is think about, okay, go on one audition or two auditions by May, whatever that might be. And time based, yes, it is. It's creating a roadmap. Yep, we're going to get to that next. And time based, again, when do you want to achieve that goal? How realistic is it? So think about this, and it is called creating a roadmap. So if we go to the next slide. Okay. So one of the things though with goals is that you want to make goals relevant and achievable, but you also want to make them a little bit harder than you may initially think about. And what does that mean? You want to challenge yourself, because if we continue to do things the same way we've always done them, we don't grow, right? Challenging yourself might require that you push yourself a little bit beyond what you're used to doing in terms of how to meet your goals. So say for instance it is going on 2 interviews a month. Just say for that. One of the things you might then challenge yourself with what you would drive yourself to do as part of those interviews. Okay. So say for instance, you're not a good public speaker, you don't really like presenting. Maybe you say that for those interviews, I'm going to develop, or you're really hard talking about yourself in a positive way, right? I'm going to work on talking about my value proposition. I'm going to work on identifying 2 or 3 positive things about myself that I'm going to highlight in that conversation, even though that may be very uncomfortable for you, right? And how will I do that? Well, I will ask people that I know to highlight those things for me, and I will practice doing it. Again, that's uncomfortable, right? But it's a stretch goal, right? And it's a small goal. It's not saying that, I'm going to make a videotape about how wonderful I am. It's just putting it into that. But you really want to think about that, because we want ambitious goals, audacious goals. Again, not winning an Academy Award a year after we graduate drama school, but things that really push us out there. So I would ask for a moment for you, and see if you're willing to share it, to think about some of the goals that you share. We were talking about ambition, what those, like the ambition was. Think about a personal or professional ambition you have, and it doesn't have to be the one you showed. It can be something different. And using the SMART framework, define it clearly, right? And then add a stretch goal to push your ambition a little bit further. So I'm going to ask everybody, grab a piece of paper and a pen, right? And do this. So remember, make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay, so pick one goal, personal, professional. Again, could be potty training your dog. It's up to you. And then think about a stretch goal, how you could push that even further. And that, of course, has to say how that would challenge you beyond what you're currently capable of, willing to do, what you currently achieved. So again, this takes some self-reflection and some thoughts. I'll give you a couple of minutes. couple minute or so more. Okay, anyone willing to share? Still working? I keep thinking about the training dog, the dog training situation, and potty training the dog and pushing yourself, the stretch goal, and um, thinking that a stretch goal is, you know, require. I mean, it comes as part of dog training, but I don't know if any of you have ever had one who've done this, requiring yourself to get up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. It's kind of like having a baby, right? To take the dog out so the dog gets used to it. Because we always think, okay, we take the dog out during the day when they're puppies, but then at night they don't go out, right? So what do? They might use inside. So you have to like stretch yourself. And particularly if you're not a person who particularly likes doing that, that's a bit of a stretch goal. But I'll tell you, it's going to make the dog training better. So again, something that easy can be a stretch goal. Anyone want to share? Don't be shy. Find a job in education to start between, this is outstanding, July and September. Stretch goal, consider other possible fields such as social services or customer or health services. Okay, great. Yeah, you could take that and you could, I mean, there's a bunch of different wonderful ways to sort of focus in on that, with maybe your education could be in social services. You could have an education role. Shadow an instructor for one online course by next month, and then teach one online course by this summer. Okay, good work. Anyone else? Do I have any exercise fans out there who might think about running a marathon, running a 4K, a 3K, 5K? I don't even know what they are because I don't run. Let's see. Okay, that's a good goal, right? Just it's better, exactly. Identify what you're interested in, places that you can do. You can call people and do informational interviews. Very good. Work on registering the name. Perfect. Perfect. Registering the name of your new company. Okay. All right. So again, these are just activities and no one's going to be perfect. And like anything else, you know, there'll be certain iterations to them and shifts. And sometimes, like I said, there are just things that are not under our control, and they might make us have to shift maybe time frames and things like that. But really think to yourself, what can I do that, because it goes back to ambition, right? It goes back again, there's no such thing as someone who doesn't have ambition. It's just the activities that you've aligned with what you have to execute are often misaligned when it seems like you have no ambition. Okay. So, okay, an NGO rendering pro bono legal service to the indigent and having a shelter for the homeless victims of violation of human rights. Well, a couple of great goals there, a couple of wonderful goals to pursue. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So again, think about these. You can refine them. I'm sure even as you think about this after we get off this webinar, you might start thinking about, okay, well, here's something I can add. here's something that I might have to push a little bit because it makes me uncomfortable, but I know that's what I need to do. Great, excellent. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay. So again, this goes back to that, make them ambitious but achievable. That's all. So you want to do things that are pushing you, but not beyond the limits of what's reasonable. Now, great ambitious dreamers are going to say, well, pretty much everything is achievable, and that's a wonderful attitude to have, but you still need a plan. So you really want to be thinking about how can I get the right steps to get me where I need to go? What are those steps, and how can I push myself a little further? And remember, a little bit adds up to a lot. It's a long, and it keeps you motivated and it keeps that ambition. Okay. Next slide, please. So again, strategies for pursuing ambition. Build a roadmap. All right. It's a personalized plan. So you typically start by defining your end goal, right? What is your end goal? Aiming to win an Academy Award is not a bad end goal, but there are lots of steps before that. So you really, if you can lay that out in terms of what, and not everyone has that large a goal, but really start with what is it I hope to ultimately achieve and for what reason, right? We talked about mission and vision, our own personal mission and visions in the last webinar. And that's part of the stuff that drives this. It's like, why am I looking for this job? And my personal mission, my personal vision, my personal values, right? Why? What's my, as Simon Sinek, what's your why, right? That creates that final vision. And then you break it down into smaller, manageable tasks and milestones. So again, it's this step-by-step guide for the journey towards your ambition. All right. So what are those major milestones? And then what are the little things that lead up to those milestones? So again, if your ambitious goal is to run a marathon in 6 months, your roadmap might include completing a 5K, 10K, and a half marathon, right? I mean, people who train to run, you always see people who train to run marathons. That's what they're doing. They're doing these smaller roadmaps. And then some of the tasks, weekly training sessions, ensuring that you're staying flexible and the like, dietary adjustments, and then regular health checks. And you build all of those into your roadmap. Next slide, please. So motivation. Obviously, it's something that can wax and wane, especially the longer it takes to get to the goal, which is why we really want to cut down these smaller milestones and stop even thinking about the long-term goal. Just think of the milestone, because we all know when we think of things we have to do that they seem too overwhelming, we typically will go into avoidance mode, right? And then we start to feel bad because we think we're lazy, we think we don't want to do stuff, and then that ambition. So we need to think about why we're doing it and what the ultimate goal is. Visualize your success. Those milestones are things that we celebrate the small wins. We give ourselves the pats on the back. Maybe if we're reward driven, we say, if I achieve this certain thing, then I can buy myself, I don't know, maybe you've been avoiding going to Starbucks on a regular basis and say, well, if I get that second interview, then I can go get myself a really expensive coffee at Starbucks. Whatever that smaller goal might be, but something that says, okay, when I get there, you can go there. I always say with dieting too, is don't make the reward food when you're trying to diet. So when you're trying to save money, you might not want to make the reward something like spending on something, but really think about what makes sense. And then ultimately connect with others. That's kind of part of the reason why we have this webinar and we're letting you talk to each other is, sometimes you find people who you can connect with, but also people in your home, in your life, people who are willing to support you, people who are willing to run next to you as you train for that marathon, or maybe just drive next to you. Someone who's willing to support you. And then remember that setbacks are a part of any journey, and particularly one that is ambitious. So going back to the fixed versus growth mindset, recognizing that changes are going to come, challenges are going to come, failures are going to come, and persistence is necessary. So I say this all the time: journaling. You have a bad day, you have a bad experience, sit down and journal it, face it. Why didn't I do that when I knew it was the right thing? Why did I avoid that stretch goal? I was falling back on regular habits. Well, I've already clarified that that goal is something that's going to make that journey and my ambition, because when you achieve it, it's only going to enhance your motivation and drive that achievement. Mindfulness, taking deep breaths. We're all in a big rush. And then seeking feedback. And sometimes feedback's really difficult. We don't necessarily, no one wants to get insulted, but people who can provide you with really strong and supportive feedback. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, one more poll. Which of these obstacles do you find most challenging when pursuing ambitious goals or when pursuing goals? And again, if there is a another obstacle that's not listed, feel free to put it into the chat. All right, a couple more seconds. We'll see what the results are. Okay, great. That's excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so lack of time. Yeah, that's a big one. No question. It's a big one. I'm glad failure is not an issue for folks. Loss of motivation. And, loss of motivation again can come from the lack of time, the overwhelm of the goal size. It can also come from sometimes just our desire for things change, right? Something is just not as important anymore, and that's okay, right? That's fine, right? So that's the other thing. But also not saying it's not important because we no longer want to work to where we want to go. That's the most important thing. Overwhelmed from the goal size. That's why we have SMART goals, why we break them down. Number one, not an uncommon answer, that people are just overwhelmed by what needs to be done. And you have to break it down, write it down. That's the most important thing. Can never do enough. Write it down, because we carry too much stuff around in our heads today. We have too much information coming in. We take that time to write it down, reflect, and just have mindfulness with what we want. We often tend to see that what we're thinking is overwhelming us isn't actually that overwhelming to begin with. And then other nervousness, concern, I mean, I'm assuming we might have things like just fear of the unknown. We might have the thing that's not an uncommon thing, which is people in our, sabotage, other people trying to sabotage us, right? Whether, uh, they're doing it purposely or, I mean, we sabotage ourselves, but whether they're doing it purposely or, unconsciously, right? Subconsciously, we deal with that a lot. Typically, families, partners, they can do that, right? Unfortunately, we can find that in work situations, right? So great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So I think one of the wonderful things about where we live in when we live is for everything that can make all the everything about digitization of our lives challenging and overwhelming. We're also living at a time when there have never been more tools available for us that can help us develop these roadmaps and stop and remember to be mindful and remember to take be reflective. So beyond things, and that is so important in reaching those goals and keeping that ambition and keeping that motivation, again, too, is just monitoring your progress towards stuff. Like if it feels like you're always failing, then that's going to eliminate motivation. Your ambition is going to go away. But if you look over a larger period of time and realize, well, yeah, I had those 2 setbacks, but given what I had put in as tasks towards my milestone, I actually achieved way more of them successfully than I did. Because what do? We tend to focus on the failures. That's just what we do. I teach. I can have a class of 50 students. 49 of them say wonderful things about me. One of them says something negative. You think I can get past that one? The thing is, that's just the human in us. But if we are mindful that we're tracking, we've laid it out, we're tracking it, we can go back and look, right? Then we can see that we're probably making more progress than we think we are. And so the tools and methods, obviously, when you're working on projects, there's formal project tools that can help you do that. Asana, Trello, Microsoft Project, time management, things like that. But even setting your iPhone or your watch or something, depending upon what your goal is, to give you a reminder. God love the watch that reminds us. If you have health, as get up every 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever it is, reminding you to stand. So there's never been more ways to manage and monitor progress and set these goals for us so that they can come with us and they can be integrated into our lives. So really thinking about the importance of knowing where you're starting from, where you're going, and what those steps are in the middle, that helps achieve where you're going. So just it depends on what that goal is. It depends on what the outcome is. But again, I strongly suggest you look, if you have a smartphone, you go into the app feature. If you don't know, ask around, ask other people. And you go into the app feature and look. I mean, there are calendar apps, there are mindfulness apps, there are exercise apps, there are productivity apps. They are everywhere, right? And that might be, and then there's also the good old journal, if you're a writer, to carry around with yourself. It's entirely up to you, but track the progress. Next, please. Reflection, as I said, cannot be understated. It is looking back on what you've done. So when you are able to see what you've done and track what you've done, and then reflect back on what you've done, it allows you to also make those adjustments to your strategies to better align, right? Because like anything else, if we're not paying attention, we veer off. Or sometimes we get veered off without knowing it. So again, get that little performance enhancement app and give yourself time to reflect. Okay, time to sit down and think. Really important. Okay, next slide, please. So back to this. So now you're all going, yeah, that's great. But we just said lack of time is one of the reasons that we don't get there, right? Or all these other challenges that we're working with. So what are the things we do? Challenges come from many different areas, personal, professional, societal, sometimes just being told that things aren't possible. But challenges are what make life interesting, and overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. Remember that, right? There's no greater feeling than surmounting a challenge that you didn't think you could do, right? You think you've got ambition before that. Imagine how you'll approach the next goal that you set yourself and the amount of ambition. Your ambition will grow and you'll become more confident. Okay, next slide, please. And again, some of the personal challenges, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, but these are all psychological, going back to the psychology of ambition, fear of failure, lack of self-efficacy, procrastination, and poor time management. So these are those things, particularly procrastination with time, poor time management, or just scheduling something, just like you'd schedule a meeting at work, right? You wouldn't blow that off. So schedule that 10 minutes with yourself to reflect, that 10 minutes with yourself, that 1 hour a week, right? Burnout. I mean, we can only do so much. That's another time to lose motivation. You're just done. All right. And then the fixed mindset, like I mentioned. And there are all kinds of great resources for these things. And then the next is personal, and the next is professional challenges. Next slide, please. Educational, so lack of resources and opportunities, unsupportive work or academic environments, and overemphasis on immediate results. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. You want to be mindful that if you're in an environment that doesn't encourage growth, think about whether it's the right environment for you. And then resources, they change over time. So try to set the goals or readjust the goals within your resources. And that tends to be when you think you don't have enough money, you may be looking too far down the road, right? Think about what you can do today that may be more valuable to you and more affordable to you, right? More within your budget, more within the immediate return on the investment today rather than looking long term. And then last, I think we have societal and environmental challenges, right? We all get challenged by cultural norms, expectations, just the way the world has pressure on us. And we go back to that idea of you define what matters for you. You define your ambition and where you put those energies to, right? And then understanding that there are some challenges, again, going to that resilience, reflectiveness that we can't necessarily overcome, but figuring out how we then shift our focus. And then last, so again, having a growth mindset, having resourcefulness, adaptability, resilience and perseverance, community and sport networks, self-care, and balance, right? It comes back to all these things make a very, very, very balanced life. And then last but not least, I believe we're at the end. So again, journey to achieving ambitions is a blend of clear goal setting and smart framework, stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone, navigating through challenges, having that resilience, that growth mindset, and diligently tracking your progress while reflecting on your journey. All right. Any questions I can answer? We're almost at the end. Okay, I got people in the chat here. Any questions? This presentation will be available. We are excited here, and this is a very strong fundamental growth perspective of mine that I like to educate people, just whether it's bringing you into one of our programs or just sharing this knowledge with you, because I don't care where you go. I mean, obviously I'd love you to come and take classes with CCPE, but you know, it has to be the right fit for you. But I really appreciate this because I think the world is full of abundance, and we all have, there's plenty out there for all of us to achieve those dreams and show our ambition. But please stay in touch, because some of the things I've talked about, growth mindsets, resilience, those are courses that I'm in the process of developing. So if you'd want to get a deeper dive into them, please keep your eye out, because I will be offering longer versions of those. Thank you. I'm going to hand it back to Allison.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm sure you all found this was a wonderfully interactive presentation, which was really nice. We had a lot of participation, and it's always great to have that. Thank you so much, Dee, for presenting, and stay tuned for information on the next webinar, the third part of our 3-part series that will be sometime in late March. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.